All right, let's go ahead and get started. Welcome, everybody. My name's Mike Yoakum. I'm the Customer Experience Manager at Zoeller Pump Company. We appreciate you joining us today for our Zoeller Product Support Frequently Asked Questions webinar. Before we get started, I want to cover a few details. Please note the email address written below the screen. If you have any questions or after we wrap up, send questions to that webinars@zoeller.com and we'll be glad to get back to you. Now that those details are covered, let me tell you a little bit about myself. Again, my name is Mike Yoakum. I started out in the production plant building 53s, 98s, 912s, and after a couple of years of getting bored on an assembly line, I decided to go to product support. And after that, after a few years, I was promoted to go out on the road for an East Coast regional manager position and traveled the East Coast for about 8 years and worked my way into a national account position overseeing a lot of our bigger customers and bigger wholesalers, and then basically came back to product support and took over our now combined product support customer support department. So if you have a contact with somebody in our support department, currently what I oversee. So now that's a little bit about my background. Let's go ahead and get started on the presentation. So product support. What does product support do? The product support department is mainly responsible for pump sizing and product selection. So what do we mean by that? Pump sizing and product selection is the ability to pick the right pump, ask the right questions, figure out what the customer needs. We've learned a long time ago that some pumps are not one size fits all. If it was, we'd have one in our catalog and our catalog would be one page, but there's not. We have probably hundreds of different variation of pumps, float switches, any combination, and that will affect the performance and that will affect the outcome of the application. So our guys are trained to basically be able to pick the right pump, ask the right questions, and guide that customer or wholesaler or contractor to the right pump. When they call in, we're also responsible for troubleshooting. This is probably the bulk of what product support is responsible for. So as people call in, obviously if they have a problem with their pump, we want to help them solve it. We want to help ask the questions to possibly get the right pump in the right application. Again, going back to the pump sizing and product selection. But troubleshooting might be as simple as, did you drill the weep hole? Which we're going to talk about later on, but that troubleshooting is very important in trying to get that customer up and running, because we'd rather address the phone call early and not have that necessarily go to a warranty situation. You can only imagine it's great to have a contractor on the phone call, and we've eliminated the possibility of him pulling that pump to take back to a wholesaler and have a warranty issue that maybe not the pump's fault at all. This is a very brand new portion in Zoeller terms of what the product support department is responsible for. The Z Control Assistance is I say new and upcoming. It's been 5 to 7 years, but in Zoeller's world, that's still pretty new. So the last 5 to 7 years, we've hooked up our sump pumps to the internet, and when that happens, you can only imagine the phone calls of connectivity and everything else that we get for people that have trouble with the Z Control alarms, the battery backups that have the Z Control, and that portion of it. Our guys are trained to be able to walk that customer through that connection and work the issues that they might have with their modem or their router or anything like that with that Z Control. Again, trying to eliminate the probability of that pump coming back as a warranty or that product coming back as a warranty. Design assistance. Sometimes we get customers that probably don't know the best layout for the piping system, or the best layout for the pump system, whether they should need a simplex or a duplex or even a triplex. We can help walk them through that. There's a set of questions that you can ask to help figure out, the piping layout. Would you have an application where you would have 45 degree angles, or is it best just to eliminate all of those 45 degree angles and put 290s and call it a day? Things like that would decrease that friction loss inside that application. This is what we are here for. Warranty assistance. We'll discuss a little bit more about warranty later on, but those customers and contractors and everybody that calls in still needs assistance on how to facilitate a warranty. Where do I need to go? If I have a homeowner that has a sump pump that failed, do they need to go back to the distributor? Do they need to go back to their contractor? Do they need to contact us direct and us deal with the warranty? That's usually not the best case. We want to facilitate it back through that distributor, but we're here to help them through that process, and I don't want to say walk their hand, but pretty close to following step by step of what they need to get taken care of. All right, product support. How do we get a hold of everybody? So the easiest way to get a hold of the product support department, and the most efficient way, is through our zcotechnical@zoeller.com. This email address goes to every guy in the product support department, and we can answer almost any question. The great thing about emails is you can add pictures. You can do a lot in the visual nature of an email. We have implemented a new computer system that allows us to manage our emails a lot better and know when emails come in and when they're answered and when they're out. So you will see probably an increase in efficiency on how these emails are answered. But this is usually the easiest way. It may not be the quickest if you need an immediate answer because it's not monitored all the time. But for those cases, we do have a phone number that you can call 1-800-928-7867, option 6 for product support. This will put you in a phone queue with about 6 individuals that are there to help ask any questions. Going back to my days when I answered phone calls on the product support line, you had no idea who was going to call in. You could go from an engineer that needed an assistance on a 20 horsepower pump, or you could talk to a contractor that's having problems with a duplex grinder system. You could talk to a little old lady that is having problems with her battery backup, that the alarm's coming off, and you have to walk her through it. So let's get into some of the frequently asked questions for product support. The number one question by far, is questions about the weep hole. What is it? Where does it go? Why do I need it? Do I have to use it? So, well, first of all, let's talk about what the weep hole is. So almost all of our pumps have a small weep hole with that little green arrow showing where that weep hole is drilled in that pump. That is an air relief hole, so that if you utilize a check valve, the air that's trapped in the bottom of that pump has some place to go. If it's not there, that pump's going to sit there and run, and it's not going to be able to pump anything out. It's going to basically have an air bubble inside of that volute, and the pump can't break that air bubble. So, in lack of a better term, you're burping the line by introducing that weep hole. Now, the pump has a weep hole. Why do I need 2 weep holes? Why do we, in the instructions, do we say that you should, as recommended, drill an additional secondary weep hole in the discharge pipe? Usually I recommend it somewhere around the height of the pump. And that second weep hole is designed to be a backup. And that backup is designed to be there in case that one that's drilled in the pump becomes clogged. or it becomes rusted over, or some type of debris gets in it. So, we've seen them come back with sticks or hay or drywall dust caked in around that hole. And the one in the discharge pipe just gives you a little bit more insurance. And that's why we recommend it. Now, we also tell people to drill it, about the same height as the pump. Unfortunately, I also have to tell people to make sure that they drill it inside the pit. We told one gentleman that was a homeowner to drill it below the check valve, not knowing that his check valve was 4 feet outside the pit, and he drilled it right below the check valve. Now, you can imagine what happened when that pump came on. It sprayed everywhere in his basement and covered the walls, covered the ceiling. When it comes out, it's going to come out strong. It comes out like a super soaker. So now we have to recommend drill the hole inside the pit so that when it sprays out, it's not going to affect the application. I also recommend people to drill it slightly at an upper angle. So when it does spray out, it's actually directed towards the bottom of the pit. That does two things. It quiets that weep hole down, and it kind of stirs everything up too, so it doesn't settle down at the bottom. So you're introducing a pump station cleaning weep hole at that point. Now, the biggest question we get is, won't it affect performance? You're drilling a hole inside the discharge pipe, or hey, my pump's leaking, or something's going on. Okay, those holes are designed to be there. When we do the performance on testing on those pumps, that hole is there, and we also account for the hole that's drilled in the discharge pipe. So the performance that you see on a 53, it's already assuming it's there. So don't worry about performance. You're not going to lose any performance by introducing that weep hole. What if I don't have a check valve? Well, the good news is if you don't have a check valve, you don't need a weep hole. Now, there's only so many instances where you would need to eliminate the check valve. We have a lot of people up north that don't like to use check valves because it keeps water in the line and that line can freeze. So they'll purposely not put a check valve in there. They just need to make sure that the pump is capable of pumping everything out and that it's not pumping 2 or 3 times before it actually gets stuff out. But if you don't have a check valve, you don't have a weep hole. You don't need to drill that secondary weep hole. If the check valve is what closes and creates that air pocket, so it's not needed at all. One of the second requests that we usually get is a pump crossover. We've built the Zoeller brand, and the Zoeller brand is one of the best pumps in the industry. So people call us all the time going, you know what, I'm tired of putting in pumps. I'm going to bite the bullet, spend the money, put in a Zoeller pump and call it a day, which is great. That's what we're here for. We might not be the first pump you put in, but we're going to be the last pump that you put in. But there are some dangers to crossing over a pump. If you cross over a pump, are you using the correct information that was used to size the first pump? I'm kind of biased. We make the best pump in the industry. But if somebody calls me and says, I've got a brand X pump, and I've had 5 of them fail in the last year, and it's a model X. Okay. At that point, I really don't care what that brand is. I'm going to size this from the start. I'm going to ask questions. I'm going to get the information from the contractor or the wholesale or the homeowner and properly size that pump. Other manufacturers out there make okay pumps. I'm not going to say good pumps because we only make good pumps, but they make okay pumps. And if they have 5 of them that lasted a year in an application, it's not the pump's fault. So guess what happens? If I cross it over by model number alone, I'm also going to give them a pump that's not going to be able to handle the situation. So we want to make sure that the information's correct that you have and that pump is the right pump for the application. You know, you give me a brand X pump and you say, well, it's been in there for 20 years. Great. Give me that model number. I'll give you our equivalent and make sure that that happens. But for applications where the application is the cause, we want to make sure that we get the right pump in there at the right time. We hear this all the time with all half horsepower sewage ejectors are the same. Absolutely not. You know, I offer 3 different variations of just a half horsepower sewage ejector. The Model 267 alone is what I refer to as the most misapplied pump in the industry. And it survives a lot that you throw at it. You know, people use it for more than just residential sewage pumps. We've seen them used in applications where they're circulating or they're running saws and they're running coolant pumps. And the 267 has a tendency to outlast most other brands, but it may not still be the right application for it. So we touched on it a little bit. We want you all to realize and what questions to ask, because we don't want to be the one that the contractor says, well, your pump failed too. You know, I put 2 brand X's in and they didn't last. I put 2 brand Y's in and they didn't last. So I came to you and we crossed it over, and guess what? Your pump failed in 6 months too. Well, that's because we didn't know the application. And the best comparison that I can come up with is, say you go buy a brand new Toyota Camry, and you're proud of the Toyota Camry, but you're pulling a 5th wheel trailer with it. How you're doing that, I don't know. Maybe you're strapping it to the roof. I don't ask questions. But your Toyota Camry has burnt out. Imagine so. In about 2 months, your brand new Toyota is garbage. So you go to the Ford dealer and you say, hey, guess what? My Toyota failed in 2 months. I'm sick and tired of it. I want to get the Ford equivalent of a Toyota Camry. Okay. So they show you a brand new Ford Fusion. And you like it, you take it home. Well, then you start to pull your 5th wheel trailer for it, and guess what? It's not going to last either. Now, had the salesman asked what you were using your car for and why it failed prematurely, you probably would have been able to hook them up with an F-250 for a lot more money, but guess what? That truck would have lasted a lot more than 2 months. So these are the things that we want to look at when crossing over that pump. We don't want to just strictly go with, oh, well, you know what, just give me the other brand, because it doesn't really help the contractor or the customer. One of the biggest questions we get is, how long will my pump last? Any idea? When should I replace my pump? One of the wisest engineers here told me, we don't offer a guarantee. Well, we don't offer a guarantee on our pump. We offer a warranty. Because the only guarantee that I can tell you on a mechanical item is that it's going to fail. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. It's our job as the manufacturer to build a pump that's going to last as long as possible. But at the end of the day, it's still a mechanical item. It's still going to fail. We like to see about 7 to 10 years on most of our applications. Now, some of the sump pump applications, you might only get 2 years before a switch fails. But that pump might have cycled 400,000 times in that 2 years. You put that pump in the next door neighbor's house, it might last 20 years because it has different water problems and it's not going to run as much. So how often it cycles really plays an important role on how long that pump's going to last. It's no different than miles on your car. You know, if you've got a small truck that's got 100,000 miles, you probably get another 100,000 out of it. Is it highway miles, or is it city miles? Is it 100,000 miles on a 1.5-year-old truck? Or is it 100,000 miles on a 10-year-old truck? All of that plays a factor in it. We often ask what you're pumping. And everybody's answer is, oh, it's just clean, clear water from a natural spring that's been filtered by limestone. It has no debris in it whatsoever. That happens about 1% of the time. So what you're pumping will dictate how long your pump lasts. Years ago, we had an application where a gentleman had a 267 that was failing in 6 months. He had 10 pumps that failed within 6 months. And I asked him, I said, well, what are you using it for? And he said they're using it in a washdown tank. As the mining equipment gets pulled out of the mine, they spray all of this stuff down and it goes into a pit and they empty the pit out. I said, wow, so you're literally pumping liquefied coal dust. And he goes, yep, with a 267 and a plastic impeller. And I said, well, I'm surprised that you're getting 6 months. That's pretty impressive. So we changed it to a cast iron impeller, and the pump was failing after a year. But guess what? He was ecstatic that he got another 6 months out of that pump. So it all depends on what you're pumping. Not everything has that clean, clear water. You know, sewage pumps especially, and we're going to touch on that later on. Sewage pumps can have a lot thrown at them. Parking lot applications are really rough because it's got everything that's dumping into the parking lot. So you have the trash. You also have the sand, silt, and concrete that's coming in from the parking lot. All of that plays a factor in what that pump's going to do. We already touched on that. About average life expectancy, about 7 to 10 years for one of our products. Some of the bigger pumps, obviously, we're going to get more life out of it. You can repair those and maintain those. Some of the smaller pumps, we still like to see about that 7 to 10 years. Of course, some applications, you put them in there, and you just know they're going to fail in a year. And that's not a warranty failure, which we're going to touch base on warranties, but that's not necessarily a warranty failure. That's just the nature of the application itself, not a defect in the pump. Backup systems. So everybody assumes that a backup system is just for a power outage. I only want it if I have a storm and lightning hits my house, knocks electricity out. I want to be able to protect my basement. Nothing could be further from the truth on that. So yes, DC systems are great for power outages, but we design our backup systems so that they also have that redundancy backup in case your pump fails. So a lot of people go, well, I just want to run my pump with 2 deep cycle batteries. And when the power goes out, the batteries are going to convert DC power to AC and then run my primary pump because I don't want a lot of stuff in that pit. That's great for a power outage. But what happens when that primary pump fails? That primary pump locks up for whatever reason. Those batteries won't run it, and your basement's going to fail. So if you have a DC pump installed in the system alongside your AC pump, then when your AC pump fails, this one's going to take over, even outside of a power outage. Trips a circuit breaker, gets a rock stuck in it, it's going to take over. So remember, backup systems aren't just for power outages. You can use them for that backup for when your pump fails. And again, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when that pump fails. So let's discuss everybody's favorite topic. My pump's 2 months old and it failed. It's covered under warranty. Maybe, maybe not. So how old is the pump? This is a big deciding factor on whether that pump's in warranty or not. You know, when I first started with Zoeller, it was great because all of our warranties were the same. We offered a 1-year warranty, 18 months from the date of manufacture. With all the different products that we have now, we have a 1-year warranty, we have a 2-year warranty, we have a 36-month, 3-year warranty, a 5-year warranty on our primary or our premium pumps. So sometimes it can be a little difficult to try to figure out whether that pump's covered under warranty. The very first question you ask is how old is it and what model pump is it? That's going to tell you right there. Now, if it's 5 years old, it's not covered under warranty. Our warranty does have a time limit. That warranty starts when that last person buys it. So a lot of people would think that when the contractor buys it from the wholesaler that the warranty starts there. The warranty actually starts when the homeowner buys it from the contractor. No homeowner wants to buy a pump that's got a 3-year warranty, but it only has a 1.5-year warranty by the time that they get it. So our warranty starts when that last end user officially buys it. Now, this doesn't account for used pumps or anything like that. You buy a pump on eBay, it doesn't have a warranty. Which brings up a great point. Where did you purchase it at? Most often, our warranty refers people back to the point of purchase. So Mrs. Smith is a homeowner that got a 53 installed. Her first official recourse is to contact the contractor and say that she has a pump failure. The contractor comes, he either fixes it, he pulls the pump and replaces it, and then he takes that pump back to his wholesaler for credit. This is the easiest and most efficient way to handle that warranty. Sometimes we have to get involved directly, but we try not to if we don't have to, because the system will take care of it, and the customer, our customer, the contractor, and the end user will get all the credit that they need. We talked a little bit before, so on a warranty coverage, what are you pumping? Are you pumping coal dust? The conversation I had with that gentleman, I said, well, sir, this is not going to be covered. And he goes, stop. I know it's not under warranty. I fully understand. I'm using it for something other than what you designed it for. This is the key. Was it pumping sewage? Okay, not an issue. Did it fail because you flushed 52,000 baby wipes down inside the pit? Or there was a string of Christmas lights that got stuck in it? Or there was dental floss? A lot of people think of the big things that cause issues. It's the small things that usually cause issues with pumps. Dental floss wrapped around a 1500 RPM motor will eventually cut through the rubber seal. Human hair will do the same, and it'll start winding around itself and start damaging that mechanical seal. Often than not, people want to know what will void the warranty and what will not void the warranty. And the absolute #1 question that we have in concerning of breaking the warranty is, can I cut the cord off or the plug off? I guess that's a better term. Cut the plug off. I don't know why you'd want to cut the whole cord off. That'd be kind of silly. But if you want to cut the plug off to install it in a junction box, if you want to cut the plug off to install it in a control panel, which you're going to have to do because the control panel doesn't have a plug, that is absolutely fine and will not void the warranty whatsoever. Now, the one thing you will have to do is make sure that it is sealed properly in a watertight junction box or inside the control panel. If the pump fails from getting water in the leak point that you created, yes, that will void the warranty. But the warranty isn't automatically voided if you cut the plug off, because there are certain applications where you just have to cut the plug off. Say you want to put a junction box in there and extend the cord another 50 feet because you do not want to use an extension cord. That's perfectly fine, and it won't void the warranty. Again, unless something happens, and we've gotten pumps back that they spliced the cord inside the pit, but they used 3/4 of a roll of electrical tape to seal the pump. Now, that's not going to fly. That pump failed because water got in the cord jacket and it shut the pump down. That would void the warranty because you did not properly seal it. Biggest thing to remember is not every failure inside the warranty period is a warranty issue. Our warranty covers a manufacturer defect. Bad down an assembly line, somebody forgets a screw, that's covered. if the motor locks up because it was at a slight angle, that's covered. We have less than a 1% failure rate on our pumps. And fortunately, that includes all of our applications and the ones that fail that are not the pump's fault. But just keep that in mind, that just because the pump's 6 months old doesn't necessarily mean that, oh, it failed, it's under warranty. You know, going back to a car, if I take a truck and I take my brand new F-150 and I put 36-inch motor tires on it and I take it out and destroy it, four-wheeling in my neighbor's yard, and the drive shaft breaks, that's not going to be covered under warranty. I'm sorry. You've altered the pump and you have put it through an application that it is not designed for. So just remember that. Not every failure inside the warranty period is necessarily a warranty issue. And if you have any questions about that, contact our product support department. We'll walk you through what questions to ask that you need to know whether or not that's covered under warranty. So products outs or failures outside of the warranty period. My pump has failed. So why? Well, are the floats set properly? Do you have floats? We've had people put non-automatic pumps in applications and they plug them in and they run. Well, they run to death because it doesn't have a float. So check your floats. Make sure your on and off float always work. Make sure that there's nothing stopping that float from operating. The picture on the left-hand side that you see, this pump was actually returned to us because the contractor said that it was pumping intermittently and I had to tap the switch or tap the pump to make it work. So we got it back, and luckily he sent it back with the check valve installed. And this is how we got it. The screws from the check valve were actually keeping the float from coming all the way up. So the water level would raise up, that little screw would hold the float down, but guess what? You tap the float, you tap the float, you tap the pump, it was enough to break that resistance and the pump would come on. This was not a fault of the pump. This was just a fault of the contractor not putting those screws on the other side of that check valve. So your pump failed because there was a possible voltage loss. Are you using an extension cord? You know, this is a no-no. You don't want to use an extension cord at all. You want to properly size the electrical cord so that you don't have voltage loss through that extension cord. You know, 115 volt through a 200-foot extension cord, you're going to not get 115 volt at the end of it. The other issue is if that pump starts to pull high amperage, that extension cord is going to get relatively hot pretty dang quick, and it could be a fire issue. So the last thing that you want to use is an extension cord. Are you getting low voltage from that application? You know, 115 volt pump, but you check the outlet that it's on and it's only getting 90 volts. There's a problem there. If you have a 115 volt plug and you're reading 180 volts, there's a problem there. That's going to be detrimental to that pump. Probably one of the largest issues that we have is improperly sized pits. You know, a pump has a window of opportunity, whether it's on or off, or whether it's too big or too small. The pit can do the same. So you can get a pit that's too small, you can get a pit that's too big. We see a lot of M53s in 5-gallon buckets. I used to see a lot of M53s in the terracotta chimney flues that people would do, and the float would almost scrape the sides because that thing was so small. The smaller the pit, the lower the volume, the more cycles you're going to have. You get a bigger pit, more volume, you can create a longer cycle, which then creates a longer pump life. But you don't want to go too big, because at that point, that pump's going to run forever. A lot of times in commercial applications, if your pump is pumping, but it's not pumping to the expectations that you think it is, and it's running rough, you know, it's not, it just doesn't sound right. It might rattle the discharge pipe. It might cause some loud noises inside the pit. It's just not running to where you think it should be. Well, if you've got a 3-phase motor, make sure the thing's not running backwards. The impellers are designed to run one direction, but you will get 20% of the flow rate running backwards. So if you're imagine a 61 HD series pump and you run it backwards, and you're only getting 20 to 30 gallons a minute out of it, chances are you might just have it running backwards. The amperage is going to be way off, and it's actually going to sit there and make a little bit more noise than what it should be running. It should run pretty smooth. You shouldn't notice it running. But if it's rattling the pipe, check and make sure it's not running backwards. This is an easy fix, but unfortunately, if it's done too long, it can damage the pump. Continuous operation. This is a big one. Continuous duty in the electrical terms for a NEMA rated motor means that that pump can run for a certain amount of time before it overloads on its thermal overload. Has nothing to do with running 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Continuous operation is running 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Only the larger ZEP pumps and our evap cooling pump in the ZPC line are designed to run 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. A 53, absolutely not. 292, absolutely not. They can run for extended periods of time if you keep them clean and cool, but they're not designed for that. Most sewage pumps, effluent pumps, and sump pumps are rated for about that 6 to 8 cycles per hour, and that's what we want to see. Now it's time for the fun slide. There are no such thing as a stupid, well, wait, there might be. There might be. We've gotten some pretty strange requests that have come through the product support department. Several of these, unfortunately, I took phone calls, but I was talking to one of a good old boy from down south, and he was questioning a model 282. Now, those of you that know the 282 know that it is an absolute stout pump. We put that in applications that you wouldn't believe, and it handles it fine. He goes, well, I need something bigger than a 2-inch solid handling pump. I said, sir, we'd have to go to a bigger frame pump to a commercial, a non-clog that does 3-inch and it only runs on 4-inch pipe, and they're $3,000 or $4,000. Where are you putting this? He goes, I'm putting it in my house. Wow. Most small commercial applications only require a 2-inch. And he goes, well, I got a big old boy at home, and I can't tell him to cut one off every 2 inches. And I said, well, that's not exactly what that means. This is designed for sewage. So unless your kid's eating concrete or a lot of hay, you're going to be fine with the 2-inch. The impeller is going to handle that. It's designed to handle waste and toilet paper. This is what you need. And it took another 20 minutes to convince him that his boy was going to block up a 2-inch solids handling pump pretty quick. Will it pass? We've had questions of aardvark hair. I've learned more about aardvark hair from zoology. We've had applications where they've said, will it pass a fitted sheet? In the prison system, a fitted sheet will take 3 flushes to go down a pipeline. Flip-flops. Will it pass a flip-flop? I don't know. Why? Evidently, prisoners like to get bored and they'll flush the sheets and the flip-flops down. So we have gotten all kinds of requests of, will it pass this? We should have had a wall built in the office and we could put stuff on the wall. But we also have people that send their pumps back under warranty for warranty evaluation. And unfortunately, we have caused several divorces with what we have found inside of the sewage pump. We had a woman call back once and she sent her pump back to us, a 267. And inside the 267, we opened it up and there was a woman's dress lodged, spun around the impeller. So the inspection team took the dress out. We laid it down, took a picture of it, sent it back to her and said, well, ma'am, this isn't covered under warranty. would you like us to send the pump back? And she sent us back a little note that says, no, thank you. That's not my dress. So I'll have my soon-to-be ex-husband buy a replacement 267 for the basement. We have also found numerous pumps with prophylactics in it where the homeowners say, oh, absolutely not. We don't use anything like that. Well, somebody in the house is, so you need to check within your house because we didn't put it there. We often get the complaint that the 53 hasn't kept up with the water levels, so we want the biggest pump that you've got. And it's hard to convince a homeowner that has a flooded basement that they do not need to install a 4-foot, 60 horsepower, several thousand gallon a minute pump in their basement, because they would literally have to take the house off the foundation to get the pump into their basement. But obviously the homeowner thinks that they want the biggest pump that we have. And most often we end up going from a 53 to a 98. One time we had a gentleman call and wanted a backup pump for his laundry tray. He had a drain pump in his basement hooked up to his washing machine. And he said, well, I need a backup pump for it. And I said, well, sir, we don't offer a backup pump that will fit in the drain pump along with your primary pump. Why would you need a backup pump for your drain pump? And he said, well, it's hooked up to my laundry machine, so I don't want the system to flood when I'm doing laundry. And I said, well, okay, when would you utilize the backup pump? He said, well, when we have a power outage. And I had to explain to him that when he had a power outage, chances are he probably wasn't running his washing machine, so the system's not going to flood out. And we had a long pause on there, and he finally went, I guess you're right. I can't run my laundry, so I don't need a backup pump. Now, we could have sold him a backup pump, but it wouldn't have fit and it wouldn't have done anything. So just some of the silly questions, requests that we get. We kind of, the product support department, we're pretty good at comparing notes and figuring out who has the best phone call, who has the most interesting phone call. Sometimes you get a really good kick out of it. So now that we've talked about silly questions, what's your question? All of the other questions, again, don't be afraid to use that webinars@zoeller.com. I hope you found the information valuable, and we'd love to hear your feedback. If you don't mind answering a short survey after you sign off, that input helps us develop future content, topics, new webinars. So we'd really appreciate you giving us your thoughts. If you enjoyed the webinar, we want to make sure that you know we also do in-person training and live virtual training sessions at Zoeller University on-campus location. The Center for Excellence is a great training facility. The center is a 6,000 square foot facility with a classroom area for lectures and a demo room for hands-on learning. So you get to get your hands dirty and build a pump and figure out, what's going bad with it, and a lot of good troubleshooting features. Our CFE staff can tailor courses for anyone, whether you're a beginner, a seasoned professional. We go from anywhere from what's a weep hole to how to tear down a pump for a full-blown service station. And if you can't come to us, we can always come to you, and we have a full University on the road product trailer. The trailer stocked with our latest products, demos, swags, and more. You can reach out to your local Zoeller representative to schedule a visit from the product trailer for your counter day, or just book a trip to the CFE. Please make sure to jot down that email, webinars@zoeller.com. It's on your screen too. And with that, we'll wrap things up. Thank you so much for taking the time. I know everybody's busy, so thanks for taking the time to join us today. I hope you felt it was well worth it, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.